Please take your seats. Our program will resume shortly. Veuillez prendre place. La séance reprend dans quelques instants. Por favor, tomen asiento. Pronto reanudaremos nuestro programa. Please take your seats. Our program will now resume. Veuillez prendre place. La séance reprend maintenant. Por favor, tomen asiento. Reanudaremos nuestro programa ahora.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Get close to the mic.
We're going to go ahead and get started for our physical work group on new work and forward work plan. My name is Ben Warren from the United States. I'm joined up here on stage with Aparna Tadavarthi, Susie Hammonds, and everyone knows our Codex Secretariat. Okay, next slide. For our agenda this afternoon, we've got several things to talk about. First, we're going to discuss a few reminders on paused and upcoming work that we need to keep in mind as we consider new work to take on with the committee. We're going to talk a little bit about managing scientific advice requests for forward work planning, which we heard a little bit. Sarah shared a little bit of that earlier this morning when we talked about agenda item 2, but we will talk about that again in the context of our forward work planning. The third part, we're going to hear from the new work proposals that were submitted in reaction to the circular letter, of which we have 2. And following those presentations and discussion, we will rank our new work proposals along with the other work that is in our queue. And then finally, we'll develop recommendations from this physical work group back to plenary. Next slide. So a few reminders on work that we have within the committee that is either on pause or we know is upcoming. If you remember back at CCFH 54, we had the guidelines on the application of the general principles of food hygiene to the control of pathogenic Vibrio species in seafood. CCFH 54 agreed to forward the proposed draft revision to CAC 47 for adoption at step 5, noting that all the references to water remained in square brackets and that this document had been aligned with CXC 1. CCFH 54 also agreed to revisit this text as soon as Annex 2 on fish and fishery products for the guidelines for the safe use and reuse of water in food production and processing was completed. And hopefully, here at this meeting this week, we will accomplish that. If the work on Annex 2 is completed here, then we will need to resume the work on the Vibrio guidelines, and the committee will need a chair and co-chairs for the remaining work. Next slide. We also have the revision to the Code of Practice on Food Allergen Management for Food Business Operators. The Codex Committee on Food Labeling has completed their revision on the general standard for the labeling of prepackaged foods, CSX 1, and CCFL 48 agreed to forward the draft revision to the general standard for labeling of prepackaged foods relevant to allergen labeling to CAC 47 for adoption at step 8. They also agreed to inform CCFH of the completion of the revisions, in particular the definitions and the new list of foods or ingredients that should be declared on a label to ensure consistency with the Code of Practice on Allergen Management for Food Business Operators, or CXC 80. Next slide, please. So CCFH 55 is invited to take note that the completion of the work on allergen provisions in CXS 1, the committee agreed to a consequential amendment this morning to remove the list of allergens and related text in CXC 80 and replace it with a cross-reference to the revision in CXS 1. The progress made by CCFL on precautionary allergen labeling, noting that CCFL will advise CCFH when their work on precautionary allergen labeling is complete, so that CCFH can further update CXC 80. The next meeting for CCFL is in May of 2026. So assuming that CCFL completes their work as planned, then they will have completed the work that will support our work at the next committee and would support a new work proposal to be presented at CCFH 56. We also heard this morning under agenda item 2 that at CAC 48, CAC reiterated the importance of timely scientific advice from the joint FAO and WHO scientific advisory bodies to ensure timely development and adoption of science-based codex standards, as well as adequate resourcing of all scientific advice bodies. Requested information on priorities and related costs to support efforts to secure adequate resources and encourage members to promote engagement in the scientific advisory bodies to ensure availability of adequate data and expertise. CCFH 55 is invited to consider scientific advice more fully in its forward work plan. And to do this, we have added a table into the forward work plan tables to capture scientific advice requests that would support upcoming CCFH work. Next slide. Circular Letter 2024-64FH was sent out to all members and observers in July 2024. Members were invited to propose new work for consideration by the above working group by the 1st of September 2025, in accordance with the criteria for the establishment of work priorities and with the process by which the Codex Committee on Food Hygiene will undertake its work. 2 work proposals were submitted in response to Circular Letter 2024-64. These included a proposal for new work submitted by Singapore and China on the development of a code of hygienic practice for manufacturing of cell-based foods. A second proposal for new work submitted by Chile on the revision of code of practice for the processing and handling of quick frozen foods, CXC 8. Although the development by the task force, I didn't take the full acronym, so I apologize for that. The development of this code of practice was done by a committee that no longer exists, although the microbiological food safety aspects of the proposal is relevant to our committee. We're going to hear from both groups that brought these new work proposals forward, and we're going to start with the proposal for new work submitted by Singapore and China on the development of a code of hygienic practice for manufacturing of cell-based foods. We would like to recognize Singapore to present the new work proposal. Singapore, you have the floor.
Yep, thank you, Chair, for the kind introduction and also giving us the opportunity to present our new work proposal on the Code of Hygienic Practice for Manufacturing of Cell-Based Food. So Singapore is representing this work on behalf of China, the Republic of Korea, Saudi Arabia, and the United Kingdom. Next, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay. So cell-based food have been discussed at Codex since 2021, progressing through CAT 45, 44, 45, 46, where there was a general recognition of the importance of new food sources and production system. So at CCFH 86, Singapore indicated our intention to submit this proposal, and it was recommended for CCFH. So most recently at CCFA 55, our companion proposal on cell culture media received with agreement to form an electronic working group to further improve the new work. Next, please. So just to give a background on what cell-based food production are, Cell-based food production will involve growing animal agricultural products directly from cell culture instead of livestock. So this is a novel technology and which has now progressed from research to commercial implementation. So multiple countries are developing regulatory framework and industry investment in facility construction is underway globally. Next, please. So the FAO-WHO safety assessment has identified that while some hazards are similar to conventional food production, there are additional hazards that are unique to cell-based food production due to novel materials, input, equipment, and processes. So importantly, existing safety framework may not fully address these process characteristics and may require tailored safety approaches. So this is precisely what our proposed code aims to address. Next, please. All right. So this work is timely because there are already countries that have approved cell-based food for commercial sales, with many others actively reviewing the assessment. We see potentially rapid global expansion with facilities operating or planned in several countries. So in addition, this diverse development highlights the urgent need for harmonized guidelines to ensure consistent safety standards and to support international trade. So without Codex guidance, we risk regulatory uncertainty, divergence in safety standards, trade barriers, and even consumer protection, or uneven consumer protection, I apologize. And lastly, cell-based food productions involve processes such as aseptic processing and novel biological systems, reinforcing the need for coordinated global standards. Next, please. Yep. So cell-based food production presents safety concerns, including your biological contaminations and zoonotic disease risks, residual chemicals from culture media, genetic stability of cell lines, novel ingredients, allergenicity, and scaffolding materials, and etc. So our new work will aim to build on the general principle of food hygiene to address these specific risks. So this will support prevention of unhygienic practices during production, processing, and handling, while providing regulators and industry with clear, tailored guidance for effective hazard control. Harmonized standards would enable consistent applications of food safety controls across jurisdictions and facilitate international trade by reducing regulatory discrepancy. Next, please. So this is just, we just want to highlight what this code will and will not cover. So the code will include the entire production chain from cell banking through to harvesting and packaging, facility design and environmental control, personal hygiene and process control, as well as cleaning, sanitizations, and quality assurance. So importantly, the code will exclude product approval processes, which still remains the responsibility of the national authorities, nutritional composition and labeling requirements, and environmental impact considerations such as your climate change, environmental and sustainability, as well as land use. So this is actually in response to the CRD 18 submitted by Brazil, because we'd like to clarify that reference to sustainability of production models were included only as a background context. The work itself is strictly focused on food hygiene. So next, please. Yep. So we did an assessment against the CCFH criteria, and we would like to highlight that the assessment is based on a forward-looking projection. So number one, on the currency of information, with the new technology requiring specific hygiene control that is not found in traditional food production, we think that we meet the criteria. Number two, on the public health impact, FAO and WHO has done a substantial amount of work in identifying hazards in cell-based food that potentially require additional risk management measures on top of the traditional food production. So we have ranked it as high. And on the trade impact, cell-based food covers a broad range of food categories. And to highlight again that this is actually a forward projection, and we would expect trade to be impacted in the future. Next, please. Okay, so probably I can have a conclusion. So this new work proposal represents a timely and necessary response to an emerging food production technology that is already moving from pilot to commercial scale globally. So without harmonized Codex guidance, we risk regulatory fragmentation that could impair trade and compromise consumer protection. So we believe that this work aligns strongly with the Codex strategic goals, particularly in responding to members' needs for science-based standards in an evolving global landscape. So we look forward to your questions and to working collaboratively with all members to develop this important code of practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to add a comment regarding the prioritization scores that we presented in anticipation of potential questions. So we wanted to emphasize the forward-looking nature of the new work that we are proposing, and we reflected this in the scoring, which is a projection based on anticipated challenges, not just the current state of affairs. So as we review the prioritization criteria, we noticed that it predominantly focuses on current concerns, and we also noted that there are repeated calls for Codex to address emerging food safety risks in a timely manner. And it appears that the current criteria may not fully accommodate the need for proactive action in such issues. Therefore, we also respectively propose that the working group to also consider a clarification or a discussion on how the prioritization criteria can better align with Codex's desire in addressing emerging challenges and future food safety needs. In addition, we would also like to call your attention to our comments provided under CRD 23 and seek the working group's favorable consideration and provide constructive comments to improve the discussion paper and proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Singapore. Before we open discussion, I want to remind the working group that right now we should be asking questions to the presenters on the work proposal and discussing the scope and content of the work proposal. I remind you that we will then have a presentation and discussion of the other work proposal from Chile. And then after that discussion, we will come back and rank these work proposals along with a few other items that are in our forward work plan. And then following that ranking, we'll come back and develop recommendations for these new work proposals from this physical work group back to plenary. So with that, I'll open discussion. Are there questions or any comments and discussion points on the new work proposal presented by Singapore? Italy.
Thank you for giving me the floor. My question is very quick. As we are discussing about something very new, a new technology, I would like to know if we can have some data about the quantities of these kind of products nowadays in national markets and even more importantly on international trade, as knowing such things could be very important within Codex, especially while considering about prioritizing works. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Italy. Singapore, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Italy, for the comment. Yep, so in my preamble, I've mentioned that in the current state of affairs, we do recognize that the international trade for such products is still very low, but we do anticipate exponential growth in the trade of such cell-based foods, given that it's actually a very broad category and a rapidly emerging area of development. Thank you.
Good Food International.
Thank you, Chair. Just to provide some additional context to Italy, as of 2024, the Good Food Institute identified approximately 155 companies dedicated to the development of cultivated meat across almost 30 countries.
Thank you, Good Food Institute. I apologize for getting your name wrong. Australia, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to raise a point around the international trade. So FSANZ in Australia has approved cell-cultured quail. We've got a second application that we're processing at the moment looking at cell-cultured duck that's produced in France. So that does raise the issue for us around how do we work about movement of cell-cultured foods between countries. So we developed the standard, but we would also need to work with our Department of Agriculture to then potentially get government certification from the competent authority in France to give the approval of equivalence. So having a codex guideline document would be useful for us, not only for assessing applications consistently, but also about the international trade between countries. Thank you.
I think we have a comment from our online participants.
Thank you. Thank you. Is that for me? Thank you. I did attend the side meeting, and I just wanted to make some comments because I put some cautions in, particularly speaking as Zenka, we made a comment during the CCNFTU about a new work proposal submitted by the European Union to have a development of principles on risk analysis of new food sources and production systems, which we thought was an excellent idea. And this was thrown out in a way, or certainly not taken up, mainly because of these cell-based foods. It seemed as if nobody wanted to hold back these new processes, which a lot of us are quite worried about, and rightly so, and maybe a codex standard would be good, and new codex guidance, but it's quite scary that it's being driven and by the need to expand this market rather than the world and the environment and everything else about the food system needing this. I mean, we could reduce the amount of meat that is consumed. That's a different matter. But we really should be looking for whole foods, and certainly not ultra-processed foods. And we're hoping very much that Codex looks at ultra-processed food, the processing, and looks at that in a different way than it has for the last 60 or so years. We need to be actually thinking about food in a different way. But I'm not against these products. I'm very worried about them in terms of infant foods, because they are really confusing and you need incredible guidance to know what's going on. And mothers are very, very taken and confused by the complicated claims that are made about infant foods and formulas. Okay, so I'm just saying, whatever you do, it seems to me strange not to allow a risk analysis at CCNFTU at the same time. It's absolutely we've got to be able to trust that these products are actually safe, and that it is a good thing for them to be boosted, because a Codex standard will always boost trade. We know that. We've been there. We know how Codex does that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the comment. EU, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a general comment, we would like to note that, as you have mentioned, the circular letter, which was the deadline for the circular letter for new work proposals, was on the 1st of September, and compared to that deadline, the publication of the new work proposals were rather late, just 2 weeks prior to this committee, and we just would like to stress that it's very important that the timely publication of the documents in order to prepare for the committee. This is just a very general comment. Our other general comment to that specific new work proposal presented by Singapore and the other proponent, we would like to call for prioritizing codex work that supports the development of national regulatory frameworks on the new food production sources, including, for example, the clarification of a definition rather than work on standards related to specific products such as cell-based food. This is the general comment. And in this new work proposal, at this stage, the EU, so we are considering that it's not ready yet. The main criteria which were put on the table for establishing work priorities for CCFH are not compiled with. And we feel that more arguments are needed to fulfill those criteria, and also on the existing experiences. For example, more information should be provided on the possible microbiological risk and the public health impact. And as Italy raised the question that the current trade of these products at both national and international level, and thus it should be considered to further review and refine. We have also some other comments. Maybe during the discussion we can raise those, but at first these are our first comments. Thank you.
Thank you, EU. Just as a reminder for our commenters, we have limited time in the physical work group, so please try to keep your interventions at under 2 minutes. Thank you. India, please.
Thank you, Chair. India appreciates the proposal for new work submitted by Singapore and China on development of a code of hygienic practice for manufacture of cell-based foods. However, as noted by EU, we would also like to submit that an agreed definition of the term is necessary before any other aspects are considered for development of a standard by the Codex. Currently, there are many different terms in use, such as cell-based, precision fermentation, cell culturing, molecular farming, etc., apart from the term cell-based, and they all are in some way related to each other. It would be important for the Codex to first come up with a mutually agreed term to encompass all these kinds of products together, define it properly before moving on to discuss on the other aspects. And it also needs to be noted that the new work on risk analysis principles for new food sources and production system is still under consideration by the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, India. Also, remember these comments and questions should be for clarification from our presenters to understand the new work that's being proposed. And then we're going to hear from the other work proposal from Chile. Then there'll be time to talk about whether or not we support the work moving forward. So if we have comments here for clarity on the work that's being proposed, let's entertain those now. If not, please hold your comments on whether or not we move forward or the concerns in moving forward for a little bit later in the working group. China, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As one of the co-author of this proposal, China supports the development of this code. We remember that in this commission that there is a decision that it suggests we use the existing mechanism to address this issue on the NFPS. So in light of this, we think such guidance is timely and important for three main reasons. First of all, it will help ensure a harmonized approach to food safety management for these emerging sector. And second, it will provide regulatory clarity for countries developing their own oversight frameworks. And third, it will facilitate international confidence and trade by ensuring that products are produced under consistent hygiene and safety principles. Over. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Brazil, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I understood correctly, during the side event, the representative from WHO mentioned that there is a lack of information to perform a full risk assessment. So I would like to understand which kind of information is missing. And the other questions is regarding if there is a standard for this kind of products, because to understand the hazards and consequently the risk, is necessary to understand the product and the process. So if I already have a standard for these products. Thank you.
Would WHO like to weigh in on data that may be missing in order to conduct a full risk assessment?
So in order to proceed with the full risk assessment, we need to respect all the steps that we need to proceed for risk assessment. So we need to have data about, first we need to identify the hazards. We identified it in the first report that we publish on the food safety aspects of cell-based food with the FAO, but we don't know exactly the process for the production of this food because it's not yet well established. Maybe there will be other hazards that we will identify. After that, we need to know the prevalence and the concentration of the hazard in the product. We also need to have information about possible exposure to the product and this, the potential hazards. So we need to have more information about all these aspects in order to proceed with a risk assessment.
Thank you, WHO. New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Chair. A very quick question. At the side event, we came away with the impression that the biological hazards themselves were not unique, that there was nothing different about these than what we've seen in other foods. Yet in the last slide, we saw here that one of the categorization parameters was unique biological hazards. I'm wondering if the presenters could clarify that.
Thank you, New Zealand. Singapore, would you like to respond to New Zealand's question?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, New Zealand, for providing comment. So understanding is that, coming back to our proposal, the focus of our proposal is not so much to identify new hazards. In fact, we do identify through existing work from WHO and FAO in their reports that there are no unique hazards, and our proposal focuses on extending the current, to interpret the current General Code of Hygienic Practice to a new production environment for cell-based food manufacturing. Thank you.
Thank you, Singapore. And I apologize, Brazil, I believe you had a second question that we didn't address. We asked WHO, but you also asked about a standard for what I interpreted as a standard for what is a cell-based food. Did I understand you correctly? Yes. Singapore, would you like to respond to Brazil's question about whether there exists a standard for defining what is a cell-based food?
Thank you, Chair. So I believe this comment is also related. It's in the same vein as India's and EU's intervention. And if we were to rephrase it, it's essentially circulating around the definition for cell-based foods or finding a correct term for calling cell-based foods. So we wanted to emphasize again, it's that the current work proposal, we are taking a more pragmatic approach to focus on addressing the food safety aspects of cell-based food production, and hence in our proposal we are suggesting a working definition for now, while concurrently we figure out an appropriate nomenclature for cell-based foods. Thank you, Chair.
Seeing that there's no other questions at this time, I would like to move on and, hold on. EU, please.
Yes, thank you very much, and sorry for the late pushing the button. We have also a question regarding the FAO-WHO document on that the biological hazards in the document are related to the production, so to the production system, and not on the public health related aspects. So could we get some clarification or more information on that? Thank you very much.
Singapore, can you reply to the EU's question?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, EU, for the comment. Okay, I'm not too sure if I got your intervention accurate. So your clarification is with regards to whether our proposal is to focus on the microbiological hazards, or controlling the microbiological hazards related to the manufacturing process, rather than aspects that will potentially be of a public health issue. So if I understand is correct, so our response is that the current work proposal is to focus on microbiological, on managing microbiological hazards associated with the production process. But I mean, both issues are actually interrelated. It's as we mentioned earlier on, we are presenting it as a forward work proposal, and addressing this in a timely manner, but also eventually address potential public health issues in the future before it becomes a real issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Singapore. In the interest of time in the working group, we're going to invite Chile to present on the other new work proposal. And Chile, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for affording me this opportunity to put forward my proposal for new work. What we are requesting for this proposal, would you be so kind as to move on to the next slide, please? We thank you for this opportunity to put forward this proposal for the revision of the Code of the Practice for the Preparation and Handling of Quick Frozen Foods, CXC 8, 1976. This would make it possible that the meat pork meat can be frozen and stored and under 18 degrees Celsius in the cold chain. Now, not all of the codex texts mention the freezing temperature vis-a-vis these specific products. What we decided was to move forward with this document. We put forward here an amendment where we are mentioned the freezing temperature. What I mean to say this mainly for poultry and pork. Next slide, please. We know that freezing is a key tool in food safety, quality, and availability. The current standard stands at minus 18 degrees centigrade, which was established a very long time ago during the last century. What we have drawn from this is that this temperature was defined because it was at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. To be able to align all of these ideas, we feel that this was a reason this decision was made to set this temperature as a freezing temperature. CX8 1976 sets minus 18 degrees centigrade as the freezing temperature for fast frozen foods, and minus 18 degrees Celsius do not fully reflect the available scientific evidence on safety in light of the fact that available scientific evidence confirms that minus 15 degrees centigrade does ensure the safety of the product, or even minus 12 degrees centigrade could guarantee its safety for the product. Next slide, please. The objectives. Next slide again. The objective of this work proposal was to submit a revision and amendment to the CXC 8 1976 Code of Practice to increase the freezing temperature to minus 15 degrees centigrade for meat, offals, and byproducts of poultry and swine. We'd also like to compile and present scientific and technical evidence to support this review and amendment. We would put forward a very specific amendment science-based with the current existing codex text to make sure that we maintain the microbiological safety of this commodity. Next slide. Microbiological safety. Next slide, please. There is a wide range of scientific information stating that at minus 12 degrees centigrade or lower to this temperature, there is no microbial growth nor metabolism in various types of food. Even going to minus 12 does provide this food safety for the specific commodity. What we would put forward that the temperature should be minus 15 so that we can set the necessary tolerance should it be necessary. This proposal does not decrease the temperature of nor the quality of the products, and it keeps everything in place. Next slide, please. With regard to the regulatory framework, there are numerous standards that set this freezing temperature, and they keep them higher than minus 18 degrees for certain products or for under very specific conditions. By way of example, in Chile, we have a tolerance that is allowed down to minus 15 degrees Celsius within our national regulation, and there are other countries, as you see up on the screen, that have their very own regulations which allow higher freezing temperatures that, beyond the minus 18 degrees. Next slide. Currently, we have received some technical comments regarding our own document, and some members have suggested expanding the scope to other foods. Chile is not close to such an expansion, and this is always subject to the availability of scientific evidence. We, of course, are not close to such an expansion as long as it is subject to the availability of scientific evidence. This is the reason why that we would put forward to do this in parallel. First of all, we wish to continue working with poultry and pigs, where there is sufficient evidence, and eventually to bring on board all meats from land animals to request scientific advice that we have, and later on we can seek out scientific advice from GEMRA to address the missing information that is still missing for other foods. Thank you.
Thank you, Chile. For commenters and presenters, please remember to speak slowly for our interpreters. I know we're excited about the work, but the interpreters are sometimes having trouble keeping up. Okay, we would like to entertain any questions for clarity that you may have for our presenter. New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chile. Look, I think that's a very good proposal. We were going to ask questions based on the original documentation about this was taken around quick freezing, whereas for carcass meats and even for pork carcass meats, that would be classified as slow freezing, of which there is international standard. So we were going to ask around that point, but I see they've covered it in their comments. And we were also going to ask about why this was just limited to pork and chicken meat when that slow freezing, the quick freezing regulation covers other foods as well. So, and I think we were also considering questions around GEMRA. So we don't have any further questions of Chile that they haven't put to the members already. Thank you.
Thank you, New Zealand. Thailand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also thank you, Chile, to propose this new work. Our comment is in CRD 15. We are actually thinking about the work of CXC 8, 1976. It's been done, like the chair mentioned earlier, by the task force on the processing and handling of quick frozen food. So it contains both recommendations, as already mentioned, that's the recommendations on food safety and quality. So we quite having a concern that because we are in CCFH, the quality aspect might not fall under the terms of reference for CCFH, but definitely we can consider revision about the food safety part, but the whole text is around the safety and quality as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Australia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We thank Chile for the proposal. We support the parallel process that they just described to include other meat species. From my colleagues here, I understand that the Australian red meat industry has done a lot of work investigating alternative temperatures, so we would have Australian data to provide, I suspect, to support the work. Thank you.
The EU, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would like to thank Chile for this proposal, and the European Union and member states. We could agree that an increase of the maximum temperature to store quick frozen meat of pigs and poultry from -18 to -15 degrees does not cause a microbiological food safety concern. The storage conditions, as long as it's below -12 Celsius, are more a quality issue, as it has already been raised, with an organoleptic and nutritional quality loss in time. So increasing the maximum temperature should be associated with a reduction, with a reduction of a shelf life storage time of quick frozen meat. And it seems it is important to further elaborate on these aspects, but we are wondering if this is the competence of the Food Hygiene Committee or the GEMRA to deal with quality aspects. Thank you very much.
We have no other comments at this time, so I would like to thank our presenters from Singapore and Chile. Oh, I apologize. Peru, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Peru thanks Chile's proposal. We can support the work for new proposal. However, what we would like to submit for your consideration a few comments and recommendations for this proposal. Now, in this regard, I feel that what we could review and make more specific all of these corrective actions that would be implemented vis-a-vis our obligations. I'm referring to paragraph number 4 of the executive summary. Furthermore, I would like to be more specific in terms of frozen foods and the proposal of changing the temperature, as you can see in paragraph number 1, Roman numeral, in terms of scientific justification and also its impact. However, the objective of this work has just been underscored. We've been focusing on all of this carcass meat, and we know that this doesn't have to do with any of the packaging. Furthermore, with regard to the missing information, I think that we need to do a shelf life study in light of the fact of the packaging, because this is a factor that is very essential in ascertaining the shelf life of the product. Finally, we need to have scientific support vis-a-vis the protein molecular, at the protein molecular level and the freezing point of these foods. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Peru. Morocco, please.
Merci. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, we would like to ask Chile for this proposal of new work, which we support, but we'd like to extend it to other products and not limit it to 2 products of terrestrial animals. Why not extend it to aquatic animals? There are some fish species whose flesh is very hard and the temperature may raise issues. For instance, I'd like to talk about Octopus vulgaris, the octopus. So we would like to encourage scientific support from GEMRA, which will provide us better guidance and better orientation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Morocco. We would like to move on to ranking from a priority standpoint, these 2 proposals, as well as renewing the rankings for the other documents that we have in our forward work plan. So can we get that table on screen? Okay, I'd like to remind the working group that as we rank these, we have 2 numerical rankings that we assign for each piece of work. The first is the impact to public health, and we rank it as either high, medium, or low, or numerically as a 20, a 14, or an 8. And then we will also rank these in terms of their trade impact, which down on the bottom we have provided a description of the 5 levels for trade impact. High consumption is a 10. Regional trade impact with high consumption is a 5. Global trade impact, low consumption is a 4. Regional trade impact with low consumption is a 2. And no trade impact would be a 0. With that, I would like to begin with the Code of Practice for Processing and Handling of Quick Frozen Foods. Revising this again, as we just heard, with the temperature from -18 to -15 in terms of public health impact. Are there any comments for ranking? Brazil, please.
I understood that there is a general support to expand the discussion. So no, I don't know how to address, because here we are talking just about this code. Maybe we can give another name for this discussion.
Thank you, Brazil. We note with the many comments that we received that there's general interest in this topic. There's general interest in expanding the scope of the topic, and we agree it's difficult to rank as we have a scope that may change. We also note that there has been comments requesting more information. So this is something that is likely something that we would request scientific support from GEMRA. If we were to expand the scope, we would need to revise the project document and resubmit that for consideration, but that doesn't stop us from making a request for scientific advice. So as we move into recommendations, please think about that. I would also like to move back to score the other documents, and then we can come back and discuss recommendations for the committee. So the other new work proposal that we heard from Singapore was, and China, was the development of a code of hygienic practice for manufacturing of cell-based foods. And again, we score these in terms of impact to public health and also trade impact. Starting with impact to public health, we rank this as a high, medium, or low. Are there any comments in terms of public health impact? New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a very difficult question to answer, as we've heard already. Because this is a new technology, then we actually cannot look at any history to say that this is going to be a major public health issue or not, and it certainly isn't at this time. If we look at a process that is fully in control, then it's quite possible that there will be no impact, but that's only because it is kept in control. If a process is out of control, then the probability is that the product won't even make it to market because it will be spoiled before it gets there. So it's a very difficult question to answer, but if we want this product to be, if we want to support this product, and if we think it is going to be a major food product and traded product into the future, then what we're doing may have a positive effect on health and make it a higher score than if you look at the actual public health consequence with respect to the product. So I don't know how we're going to be able to answer that. Over.
Thank you, New Zealand. As you were delivering your comment, we were also having a sidebar that this one is it's very similar to the other work proposal, and noting that the two work proposals that we've received are challenging in the way that we've developed our ranking system and evaluating work in the forward work plan. These are very different than some of the work that we've considered in previous committee meetings, which fell more naturally into our ranking system that we've established. Noting that it seems like there was a lot of interest in this topic, I think we can bypass the ranking and move towards a discussion of where the work group wants to develop recommendations for plenary. So going back to the new work proposal on freezing temperatures, which we had started the discussion with. Again, we noted that there seemed to be wide agreement with the physical working group that there is interest in this topic. However, questions about the scope of the work and the need for additional information as the work proposal that was submitted was specific to 2 commodities, but it seemed like there was interest in broader commodities. Again, this is an area where we can make requests for scientific advice from GEMRA. At the same time, we can ask Chile if they were interested in expanding the scope of the document, or if there was other interested members who would like to work on an expanded scope. I open the floor for comment or discussion. New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to ask a question perhaps of Chile, and we should have asked perhaps before. Is there a reason why it is necessary to urgently, if you like, raise the freezing temperature just for pigs and poultry meat? Is there a financial or a trade or some other reason? Or could we perhaps wait until we have got a general report that says other foods, we could raise that for other foods as well? Over.
Chile, would you like to respond to New Zealand's question?
Gracias. Thank you. Our proposal is for these 2 food products because there was interest on the part of Chile in these products in particular, and we would like to move forward in parallel, as we said, maybe expanding to land animals such as bovines and others, and waiting for GEMRA's evaluation for other foodstuffs. But of course, we're open to what this group thinks in order to move forward with any other work.
All right, thank you, Chile. EU?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I did not get a reply yet or clarity yet on the question that we asked and that I want to ask about the quality aspects. Because we may agree that from food safety perspective, or at least the outcome of our work may be that from food safety perspective, this is not an issue. But for the industry, the quality aspect is also an issue. So I don't know if it's the task of GEMRA to look at that or how we can deal with that. So I would like to have some ideas about that, how you are going. I think we have to, one way or another, we have to know what we want to do with this, so how we can arrange it.
Codex Secretariat, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I just want to refer a little bit back to some of the questions that have been raised about the nature of this work and where it should be done and how we can address it. And as you may be aware, this current version of the document on quick frozen foods was actually developed by a task force, which of course no longer exists. And so there is no living home for this document as such. As some of the issues pertained to safety, it was brought to this committee for further discussion. And then it's for this committee to decide what needs to be done with regard to this. All the members here have the opportunity to share their views on that. I think, as we heard, the committee is comfortable considering safety issues, but also acknowledge quality issues need to be addressed. And while we don't have a natural home for them, the committee can consider taking them on in parallel, or can advise the Executive Committee and the Commission that this work has two elements, safety and quality, and how and where that work should be undertaken when it comes to quality. Noting that they may just say, well, you're working on safety, so you could always cover the quality here as well. But we could ask that question of the Commission. When it comes to scientific advice then, I mean, I'm sure our colleagues from FAO and WHO can advise, but while GEMRA is set up specifically for microbiological food safety issues, in the past, certainly on quality-related issues, it wouldn't be unusual to maybe also request FAO in particular to look at some of these issues when it comes to quality and other issues, and it would be for them to determine then if they could address those issues or not. So it may not be specifically GEMRA, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be within the remit of FAO and or WHO to address these issues if they were so requested. Thank you.
Australia, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in our discussion here, it's whatever temperature industry chooses to set, they'll still need to consider quality aspects. And I think it's the Australian opinion that that's up to them. I think the safety aspects are what we're interested in. If they want to go to a higher temperature and that means they have a shorter shelf life, then that's a commercial decision for industry to make. I'd prefer to focus on food safety. Thank you.
So it does sound, after we heard from the Codex Secretariat, that there is a path forward if the committee chooses to request not only scientific advice on safety from GEMRA, but also to request specifically from FAO information on quality that could help inform any work that we decide to take forward. this physical working group can, can certainly make that recommendation to plenary for discussion and see if the committee decides that that is something that we want to advance. Codex Secretariat was reminding me that part of our discussions this week has been around all of the work that we're discussing, whether it's the virus work, the work on revising Listeria, the work on Campylobacter and Salmonella in chicken meat. All of these EWGs have received comments around the freezing temperature. We heard earlier this afternoon a discussion around the freezing temperature when we were discussing the virus document. So one way to handle this is to rope all of these questions around what is the appropriate freezing temperature into one piece of work, as opposed to getting these questions and dealing with it every time that we're working on a new document. So I do put that out there as a path forward to help answer these questions across the board would be to expand the work and request scientific advice for all foods. Canada, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we are all reminded about the three documents, comments not on the virus document, but for the Listeria document, we receive comments also on the refrigeration temperature as well. So I think, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but maybe for scientific advice, we may look as well at the refrigeration temperature and not just at the freezing temperature. So just a suggestion.
Given the discussion and the wide interest in this topic, and given the interest of time that we have left in this physical working group, I'm going to propose that we ask for scientific advice, and in the meantime that we ask GEMRA and FAO to get together between now and Wednesday and scope out what that work might entail to be able to inform plenary what exactly would be available in scientific advice around freezing temperatures.
Do you want to mention refrigeration?
Yes, and also refrigeration. As Canada was commenting, our questions aren't limited to just freezing, but also refrigeration. So unless there is any objection, we would like to make the recommendation from this physical working group to request scientific advice, leaving the scope open for a small group to coordinate with GEMRA, FAO, and WHO to develop a proposed scope for temperatures on freezing and refrigeration if appropriate. Can we agree on that? I'm taking silence as acceptance. Okay. Moving on to cell-based foods. Moving the discussion back to recommendations for the new work proposal on cell-based foods. FAO, please.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if it's possible to have some kind of indication of who may be interested in taking this on. Who do we need to speak with?
I think what we'll try to do is set a time during the meeting and a place where interested members can meet and discuss that. Thank you.
Do you want to set that now?
UK, please.
Thank you, Chair. The UK would like to support the proposal for CCFH to develop a code of hygienic practice for manufacturing of cell-based foods. Our view is that it is important to have an international standard for cell-based food production. The UK does acknowledge that CCP products are not yet well established. However, we consider it timely to develop guidance so regulators and industry can adapt before significant divergence is introduced. Thank you.
Saudi Arabia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Saudi Arabia would like to echo the UK position and support the new work proposal on cell-based food. Thank you.
We have a comment from our virtual participants.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Two very short things. I think you could forgive us for being very frightened about the cell-based foods, in that some of the manufacturers are even claiming that some of the milks are breast milk, and that is really dangerous. So I think my caution over it is that, and I cannot see how what health advantage there is in having these products, but we'll leave it at that. And once what I would like to ask you as well, as I've got the mic, is there any chance that I can raise something about botulism and the updating the guidance on infant formula? Will that come tomorrow or on Wednesday, or is there time in this meeting?
I appreciate your comment on infant botulism. If we can get through this, yes, we did have a portion to talk about that.
Good. Okay.
Yep, thank you. The EU, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As we have already indicated or signaled that we think that we consider that the work proposal on this matter is premature. So since information on the possible microbiological health risk is missing from the proposal, and currently only a few members have experience in assessing and regulating these products, and it has also been mentioned that the trade impact is also uncertain. So a lot of uncertainties on the issue. Thank you.
Brazil, please.
we support the EU intervention. Brazil provide some reasons in CRD 18 that was supported also by Uruguay. And we support the work that is made by WHO and FAO, especially to find new sources of proteins like insects, but we are not discussing insects here because you don't have a significant international trade. So we believe that it's premature. You have to define what kind of products is cell-based product. And it was one crucial step to define the hazards, and is missing a definition that what is the cell-based product that we are talking about. And we believe that FAO and WHO should continue working on it for the future. We have the elements to discuss this issue. Thank you.
Italy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. Italy strongly supports the EU intervention, and also we would like to stress that we think that it's very premature to work on such a topic, considering that we basically have no data about the quantity of these products on international trade and also on international trade disputes, which are important information in Codex. And that as far as we know, there's no international trade of these kind of products, basically. So we really think it's strongly premature to start such a work in Codex, considering the limited resources of Codex Alimentarius and the need to prioritize works with a global relevance. Thank you.
Thank you, Italy. Korea.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Korea is establishing detailed criteria for application for the recognition of cell-based products as food ingredients and is conducting safety assessment. Once cell-based foods are approved in Korea, Korea agrees with the development code of hygienic practices for the manufacturing of cell-based food within CCFH to facilitate international trade. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Korea. I know we have another few in the queue. We also have 5 minutes left in the physical working group. It seems like we're kind of split down the middle on this one. We've had 6 interventions, 3 supportive and 3 not supportive. So I don't know that we're going to reach a consensus in this physical working group on this new work proposal. I think from a physical working group standpoint for plenary, we will have to share the discussion that we had and that we were unable to reach a consensus on this one. We did have one other topic that we wanted to talk about in terms of looking at requests for scientific advice and utilizing our scientific resources to support our forward work plan. If we could go to that table. It's all the way at the bottom. Nope, no. So one of the things, as we've tried to think through the forward work plan and the documents that are in the forward work plan, where there may be requests for scientific advice. One document that has come forward, which we've seen some comments in different areas, is the Code of Hygienic Practice for Powdered Infant Formula. As has been discussed at this meeting, there currently is an infant botulism outbreak associated with consumption of a certain infant formula, as well as the risk assessments that were done on Salmonella and Cronobacter were done 20 years ago. And we've had issues certainly within the last 4 years related to Cronobacter in powdered infant formula. So I submit to the physical working group whether we would recommend that scientific advice be requested of GEMRA to conduct risk assessment or evaluate the current scientific information and determine if new risk assessments are needed for Salmonella and Cronobacter, as well as monitoring the progress of the infant botulism issue to determine if there's any work and scientific advice that could inform revisions of that Code of Hygienic Practice. Are there any comments from the physical work group on such a recommendation? We have a number of comments in the queue, and we are very limited on time, so I would ask that interventions be a minute or less, please. India.
Thank you, Chair. Our intervention was actually on the previous discussion, and we wanted to reiterate that a need for definition of these kinds of products be noted and discussed in the plenary. Thank you.
Thank you, India. Brazil, please.
We support the risk assessment for Clostridium botulinum and also revise the recommendations for Cronobacter and Salmonella.
Thank you, Brazil. WHO, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a suggestion for the item 10. So, yeah, personally, I will be happy to deal with any request, but to work efficiently, we need to deal with the requests by considering the limited budgets and also human resources. It would be appreciated if you could prioritize which one should come first, and then, yeah, like that. Thank you.
Thank you, WHO. New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, the powdered infant formula code is quite old, and the changes that we are proposing on monitoring and cleaning, etc., in the Listeria document warrants reviewing the powdered infant formula side for that. There is poor implementation, perhaps, of cleaning practices for dry cleaning for Cronobacter. The FAO meeting on toxigenic Clostridia didn't identify any issues with powdered infant formula and Clostridium botulinum, and we think it's too early, given that the FDA has not identified what the issues are with the current outbreak, to warrant looking at powdered infant formula, but that may change when FDA come to a conclusion. Over.
Thank you, New Zealand. It sounds like we have support for requesting that scientific advice on powdered infant formula, both for Cronobacter, Salmonella, and infant botulism. We are out of time in the physical working group, so I thank you for the rich discussion, and we will prepare CRD with the outcome from this physical working group to be published on the website. Codex Secretariat, would you have any last-minute announcements? Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for stopping right at 6 o'clock. Really appreciate that. So now, delegates, comes the fun part. We will have a welcome reception this evening from 7 to 9 p.m. in the Sky Lounge, which is on the 28th floor of the hotel. In order to make things easier, we are going to run the two elevators in the center with the Sky Lounge rugs direct from level 2 up to 28. You can risk trying to get on the elevator from your rooms on a different floor, but I can't guarantee there will be space. So in order to facilitate this, please come to level 2 at 7 p.m. And the hotel will run the elevators express to the 28th floor. We will reconvene tomorrow with plenary at 9 a.m. And I think the plan is now to kick off with agenda item 5, water. The CRD2 should be available in English, French, and Spanish on the webpage. I'm checking right now. It is. So in between the reception and tomorrow morning, please take some time to read the CRD in your relevant language. And so with that, see you at the reception. Thank you.